Hey everybody, this is Steve from Still Working It Out, Life on the Road. So it's the morning time. I'm just got up a while ago, and I just made a video earlier. I wasn't going to make any more videos today, but I was watching a David Boomer talk. I was watching a post of his, and he made a. I really enjoy David Boomer's work on YouTube because he's a cool guy. He's an admirable person. He's about my age and maybe a little younger. I don't know. I can't tell. But he makes some really good points, and I vibe with where is politically. And he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that would be making posts, except that there's kind of extraordinary circumstances these days that bothers him enough to where that he's decided that he has to get involved, and I resonate with that. You everybody that knows me on Facebook, they're so sick, and I feel bad for everybody like that. All my Facebook friends, so they're so sick of watching me comment about things I don't agree with and all that, and I sincerely apologize for the never-ending posts and the ranting and stuff like that. I really try to, not on social media necessarily, but in general, I try to not rant and stuff too much. Uh, I have an up personality already, like one of those Ritalin kids that never got Ritalin. But so I know that I'm a tiny bit, I hate to say volatile, but I don't have any fear mechanism that works properly. I don't have any, which is not a good thing. It's not in the slightest way, good thing. It creates a lot of stupidness, and I say more than I should on a regular basis. This guy, David Boomer, doesn't do any of that stuff. He's very controlled, very disciplined, and I admire that and wish I could do that. My father was way more like that, and he didn't talk much at all. Me and my father and I had some really great conversations, and I know at one time he had a lot of hopes for me, and he passed away at 50 years old when I was 19, so he didn't get to see anything happen one way or the other. But in your teen years, you become an idiot from the time that you're about 12 to 21, 5. I don't know what it is, but I'm unfortunately he was waiting. He was probably having to wait for me to stop being an idiot. I wasn't that bad, I guess. That I look back on it, but having to be a parent of a bunch of small kids, because I was the last one at home, and I wasn't really officially at home at that time. But I was still involved with the family. My younger brother and sister were still living at home, and when he passed, and he was a truly great man. He didn't come from any kind of privilege or advantage, but he was extremely intelligent, which fooled a lot of people because he had a deeply Southern accent and was missing one of his eye teeth. And so a lot of people looked at him like they didn't know him, instantly formed an opinion of what they thought he would be. And they were incorrect, every time. So, and he mused about that to me often. That it was funny that somebody in a technical meeting about, his work, somebody would say something stupid. So a very stupid person would say something stupid like, "Where'd you learn that word, Joe?" Like as if he was some kind of cart collector in the Walmart parking lot or something like that, with a never-ending smile on his face, kind of a thing. But he was far outclassed people as far as intelligence goes, and he had done that his entire life. It was proven stuff. But David Boomer, who is on a YouTube thing and all that kind of stuff, he's a really great guy. I don't know much about him. I know that he recently ran, I believe, for Congress. And shit, if I'd have been in the state he was running, I would have voted for him in a heartbeat. Really smart guy, but you could tell he's a regular person. And he's on the list of human beings that I admire. Right now, there's a pretty good sized list of people, you know. My wife's a super fan when it comes to like football and baseball, and especially football. And she hates the fact that I have 5 teams. And they are ranked in priority. The reason we're married, this is it, we share the same of my top team, you know, the Chicago Bears. Now, I've been a Bears fan since I was, 15. And she's a lifelong Bears fan. And it's very important to her, right? If I was a fan of a different team, I don't think we would have ever had 2 sentences together, you know, is a guess of mine. But the fact that I have 4 other teams that I rank in priority just kills her, that I could even think of another team, you know, kind of a thing. I think that's hilarious. It's one of the things I enjoy about harassing my wife, is telling her, you know, about one of my other teams. She likes all football way more than I do. But I have a list of people that are a lot like that team thing. And by the way, for anybody that wants to know me a little bit, I am the most loyal person you could possibly meet. My teams are the Chicago Bears and the Chicago Cubs. Both of those teams suck so bad, but I remain loyal. I am a loyal fan. But when it comes to football, I have 5 teams, and I'll run them down for you. Chicago Bears, first and foremost. I will say that it's the only professional game I've ever been to, as far as football. And I've been to several of them. I don't care if they're going to lose. They're my team. After them, it's the Steelers, because the first football team I was ever a fan of was the Steelers. And then once I was introduced to the Bears, the Steelers had to get demoted, but there started the priority list. After the Steelers, it's the Patriots. Just have always been a Patriots fan. After the Patriots, it's the Eagles. And after the Eagles, it's the 49ers. So I have a list of teams. Now, there is an opposite list, but it only has 2 teams. A list of teams that I just plain old can't stand. I will be kind to their fans when we're talking and all that kind of stuff, and I don't talk about them and their relationship to their team behind their back. I respect that. Anybody in the world could say the same thing about me and my team, and I wouldn't give them shit, other than the normal shit, you know, that you're supposed to have between fans. But the Packers and the Vikings, oh my god, it was tough on me in a way, because I was a big time Oregon Ducks fan, and the Packers had the same colors, so I had tons of swag from the Ducks and when I was younger. And when I moved to the Midwest, I constantly got compliments from a distance when they were like, "Oh, Packers, go Packers," and I'm like, "No, fuck that. What are you doing? What are you talking about?" You know. So yeah, it made me have to reevaluate my life, you know, choices. I guess that's how gangs are. It's all about the colors. It doesn't matter what they say, even though there's a big duck right on it. But whatever, it's all good. No, but David Boomer is the bomb. That guy right there, I'd vote for him for most anything. So if anybody wants to know, and I don't know why you would, don't even get me started. I'll try not to let it prime the pump. But I'm not a Trump fan. I'm not a MAGA person. I've had moments where I've talked some serious smack about both of the above. And I don't regret in the slightest way ever saying anything bad about Donald Trump, because he is it's not about him the person, it's about what he's doing to the country that I love and that I grew up loving. And as far as MAGA goes, I don't have anything against MAGA other than because I think that I don't think they can help it. I don't think they know what they're doing. I think they're victims of a very well orchestrated psyop that is much wider and deeper than people realize, and it's been going on since the collapse of of the end of the Cold War, the collapse of Soviet Russia. You know, the KGB never went away. They just reorganized. They regrouped. You know, and yeah. So that's my opinion. My opinion: Donald Trump is in the pocket of Vladimir Putin, and he's been doing the guy's bidding for a very long time. But it's not just that's not the only place that Putin was focusing on and having his country focus on. It was a whole bunch of other things, mostly through the emergence of social media and things like that, even talk radio. When Rush Limbaugh really hit the deck running at the very beginning of, or I should say at the end of George Bush Sr.'s tenure in the White House, Rush Limbaugh, I don't know that Rush Limbaugh was working directly for anybody, but I guarantee you Rush Limbaugh wasn't alone in his thing, and somebody that was in his circle was taking cues from somebody else in a faraway land. So this is a long psyop. It's a long con, if you give it. It's like 30, 40 years long. And there's never been anybody better at that specific area of intelligence work than Soviet Union. Just, England invented the intelligence community, basically. America picked it up after World War I, World War II, and ran with it, expanded it and stuff, far beyond what England's capability was. But England still wrote the book. When Russia began it after World War II, they are an extremely industrious people and a lot of very, very intelligent people. Their systems really fucked them over because it didn't reward brilliance, it didn't reward intelligence, it didn't reward innovation. So their circle of people that were encouraged to innovate there became smaller and smaller and smaller, because when you're not rewarded for something, it doesn't mean necessarily financially even, but when you're not being told good job, there's you look for that as human beings. We look for that. We want the dopamine that comes from when mom told us it was a good job to clean your room, you're doing good in school, whatever. And the things that encourage us to continue on a good path. So eventually Russia's thing kind of faded and almost collapsed. But they, instead of actually collapsing, because they're still active, very active now, they refocused and they really, really, really honed clandestine operations. And, all of us participate in that. Every government in the world participates in clandestine operations. And there's no such thing as a real ally when it comes to that kind of stuff. We steal information from each other, whether we're friends or not. China has been really working at it for the last 20 years as far as clandestine operations, and they've gotten really good at it. But nobody holds a candle to the old Soviet Union, which is now, Russia, run by the same people, but with money as the biggest motivator that they can do it out in the open. And so that's the psyop that we're living. So that gives you an idea of where I'm at politically. David Boomer is kind of like me, except that he's smarter and he has better control of himself, which I admire. I envy, frankly. Anyway, he was just talking about the political stuff that we're all watching right now. With Kristi Noem just got fired yesterday, I think. It give you an idea. We're early March, but I mean where that Donald Trump is trying to make enemies out of all of our allies, old allies that from World War II on, or World War One on, is trying to destroy our relationship with Canada, with Mexico, with, which are two of the most important relationships that we have, because people that are foreign adversaries from Russia or China or the Middle East or any place, all they really have to do is land on another continent, or a farther away part of a continent, another country rather, and then walk up. People do that all the time, and Mexico is a good buffer. Canada is a good buffer for that. They're both watching our back, just like we have been watching out for them for many, many years, until Donald Trump. And the idea is that Putin couldn't destroy NATO. NATO was the one thing that was holding China and Putin to account. They knew that between America's hardware and military and the rest of NATO and their key positions around the world, that they couldn't own everything. They couldn't just take everything that they wanted to. They couldn't own everybody else's resources. America's been really bad about that, but we're a society built on freedom, and as much as that it's been whittled away by the super powerful since the beginning of 1900, we are still a free society. And David, his name's David Clayton, but he goes by David Boomer, and he was just putting a video together that said that he's ready, for, and I've been saying this for a while, but we're ready. A lot of people are ready. I know a ton of veterans that are well trained, and they went to civilian life for whatever reason, and but the training never goes away, and it never goes away. You might get out of shape, you don't ever forget it though. Okay. For people that haven't been in the military, I know you don't understand this. If you want to understand it, imagine to something that you're the best at, your best skill, your absolute love and skill. The military has, they figured out how to own your mind first, and then they made you proud through a series of events like promotions and uniforms and similar hairstyles, all those wonderful tricks and techniques of indoctrination. And then as they were teaching you skills, you didn't just learn them in the front part of your brain, you put them into the long-term memory. When somebody starts losing their mind, the last thing they're going to remember is what they learned in the military. And that's just the truth. I almost went back in the military, and I really wish I had in after 2001, after 9/11, and when I went into the recruiter's office and was starting to work with them to get me back in, I was going to have a different job and things, because my job had been phased out due to technology advancements. And they sat me down. They wanted to know where I was at as far as what I knew, what I retained. And they put a big test in front of me and said, okay, just, answer the questions and fill out the things where you have to write things out, and, everything from land nav to, just everything they teach you in basic training, and from then on, all the different skills. And so there's 4 or 5 recruiters in there, and they're chatting with a guy over there, and I'm over at this back desk doing this and stuff, and nobody's really paying attention to me. I was at the time 28, something like that. Maybe older, maybe a little older. And I'd gotten out of the military when I was 20. So, no, I might have been in my early 30s. Now that I think about it, I don't know. I don't remember. But got done after about, I don't know, an hour, half an hour, something like that. And said, okay, here you go. And they're like, okay. Picked it up and went into their boss's office, and we're kind of going through stuff so they could talk about, where I was, how they wanted to kind of present me and all this kind of stuff. And he came back out and he said, oh, hey, this wasn't supposed to be an open book. And I said, okay, I didn't have a book. And they're looking around near me to see if I actually had a book. And I said, why? What's going on? What happened? And they're like, well, you didn't miss any questions. And it was a big thing. And I'm like, well, it's just all stuff I knew. I remembered, and I hadn't ever tested between those times. That was a long space of time where I was having another life. And I hadn't forgotten anything. Nothing. It was important to me at the time enough to where that I did the Forrest Gump thing, where I excelled at everything. I should have stayed in. I didn't stay in because life, the old joke is if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So I had plans, but then life, kicked me in the stomach and made me change my plans. And but I didn't forget anything. Which is funny because a lot of people that know me would know that I'm not a classic, good student type, But I guess if you give me the right stuff or the most interesting stuff or figure out a way to make it stick in my head, it's in there, So for all these veterans out there that were trained in deadly arts, you remember it all. This is 2026, and Boomer has a point. Start getting back into shape, folks. Really, keep doing your job. Keep doing what you do, that's completely unrelated to this shit, completely unrelated to your previous life as a wearer of a pickle suit, or whether you're in the Navy or whatever, Air Force. Get back into shape. Start running every morning, before you go to work. Put in some hours. You'll feel better at work all day. You remember how that is, PT. You don't got to go crazy, but start getting strong again. Get your cardio back. Get your breath up. And we probably won't need it. God, I hope we don't. But there's something coming, I think, in our lifetimes, where I was hoping I had kind of escaped that. But before my generation, America had always been at war, for as long as people can remember. If there was always somebody out there that we needed to stop from doing something bad or whatever. Even when we failed, like in Vietnam, we still gave a lot of people's lives to that and trained a lot of people and told our people to kill other people for something that in reality was a waste of time. Korea wasn't much better, Ideologies should not cost blood. They just shouldn't. But now we're on the other end of that stick, and somebody's long psyop that has been well planned out, and we were even warned about and ignored, is coming to fruition now. And it's believed by some that it's entirely possible, because I know that's what he's angling for. But he's angling, the current president is angling for no more elections. And he sees that he's failing in our system, the way our system works. So what he's got left is another type of system. And so he's trying to put us at war so that he can call off elections. Because that's something that's done. It's been done before. It's not a new precedent or anything. It's an old precedent. And he has plans for that kind of shit. He wants to turn us into a dictatorship. He really does. And I know that sounds really stupid and really wacky, but his face on all buildings in Washington and shit like that. I mean, it's all, we've seen this before. In Iraq, that's how it was with Saddam, and in North Korea, and all kinds of stuff. And there's too many things that are too obvious to ignore. There's a lot of people that would like us to just shut up, stop talking about it, because that gets in the way of the plan. People like Boomer I admire, a lot of other people too, are saying the same things. Now, I don't know what Boomer's life's been like, but my life's been a never-ending, changing thing where I'm always learning new skills and stuff. And it started out at 17, learning deadly arts, and a lot of really important things that make people like me and anybody else that's a veteran very valuable. And there's also been a long concerted effort to make sure that veterans feel stupid and useless. And, once you're done and retired, once you're an old person, once you have MS like me, and you've escaped having to kill people, I've never had to do it. Where my generation, 1975, they pulled out of Vietnam, and there was no war that we were involved with, other than tiny little conflicts here and there, just to keep our special operators sharp, and then to keep our war machine gassed up. We gave away lots of weapons and helped to destroy a lot of people. But my generation, for the most part, didn't have to kill people, which I at one point I thought I escaped. The entire time I was in the military, there was a Cold War going on, and it was everywhere. We talked about it constantly. We trained for it constantly. The only enemy I ever trained for was Russia, the USSR. Ever. The chemicals they used on people, the communications, I was a communications person. The communications they used on people, in battle or whatever, it was all I ever trained for. And then the Soviet Union collapsed. I got out of the military. I didn't get out of the military because of that, but I got out of the military because I wasn't progressing the way my plan was laid out, and partly because of political stuff that was going on, partly because we had just won this giant chess match with the Soviet Union, which gave us a giant deficit, and the deficit had to go away, and some of the military had to, basically stop recruiting. At the same time, to shrink the military a little bit because of what we had been building up to get them to collapse. And they did, and we didn't because of our system. But my plan wasn't going the way I had expected it to go. And so I recognized, okay, plan B was something else that I had to figure out. And so that's what I did. And of course, so I got out right after the collapse. And then not long after I got out, it started up in the Middle East again. And I was like, son of a bitch, people in my old unit were going over to Kuwait, And I'm like, okay, fine. But I was already on a track to do something else by that time. So I kept on that track. I didn't have to get into a fight. I never wanted to hurt people. I wanted to help, but by that time it was obvious that it had been made obvious to me that there was plenty of help. In fact, they were trying to scale it back a little bit. The tactic was, we're not gonna take in prior service people. We're gonna keep training people out, and we're gonna get and after 4 years or 6 years, people will fall out. They'll go back to the civilian world, but they're trained militarily. And so the goal was to have the largest civilian population that was professionally militarily trained, which made us a very dangerous country to try to attack, because we could turn out a gigantic civilian military that was not a bunch of farmers, that didn't know anything about anything, militarily. We were a giant force to be reckoned with. And so I wanted to go back in, but it was impossible at the time. They said I could go back in if I wanted to be special forces, and I'm like, there's a pretty big attrition rate with that, and for a reason. It ain't easy, and so I'm like, okay, well, I'm past that date in my life, you unless you're just some kind of super person, which there are people like that. But that's why there's such a small percentage of people that make it through the Q course and Ranger School and things like that. That's why Delta and stuff are chosen so selectively, because we're not all Superman, that's just the way it is. I had some Superman in me when I was a little bit younger. If I had stayed in and continued to work at it and stuff, I would have been able to use that for years. I would have wrecked my body, but I wrecked my body in the civilian life. The only difference was I helped other people. I didn't just help in the military. So I almost went back in, though, after 2001. And I was a week from leaving, a week from going to the Mets, signing it, and continuing. And my second wife, that year had been really tough on her specifically. She already had some issues, some pretty serious bipolar issues and things that she was fighting, and that year had been really tough on her because my wanting to go back in had to make a lot of changes to my life. And in that time, I got a night job because I knew I'd be starting. I was to be a prior service person. I was going to have to go to Ranger School, and shit. By that time, I was old. Old, like 38, and you're old enough to where that the people in the recruiter's office were taking bets on if I would live. So I thought that was fun. So I had to get back into shape, and I was running 10 miles, within 3 months from not, from being a slug, to that. And, I was quadrupled my push-ups and all that kind of shit. And I was be able to do, 1,000 sit-ups in a day. And, I was very focused, and that was tough on her. And, I cut all my hair off. I had long hair at the time, halfway down my back. That's how she met me. I was living a different life, and that was too much of a change when I cut it all off and stuff and all that stuff. And I wasn't that great of a person at the time either, because I was going through a lot, and so between the two of us, we were a tough match in the beginning, but then it just became too much. And so she said she wanted a divorce like a week before I was going to leave. I should have just said, yes, let's go ahead and do it. Hindsight's 2020, and then left for the military. Instead, I said, I don't want to give up on us. I don't, obviously I've been putting you through something that you couldn't handle. I thought you'd be able to handle it. And I thought that once I got in the military that you would start getting the benefits, and then you could have, a better life than you've been having with me working a crappy night job and being asleep during the daytime, and we didn't have as much social time together and stuff like that. I really thought that would help, like the families of people in the military very well. They bond really well, and they get, help from each other and stuff. So anyway, I didn't go. But for 57 years old, I'm one of the most dangerous people I've ever met. And that's not hyperbole. That's not me being braggy or bravado, sticking out my chest. It's just the truth. I would never, ever use it. Ever use it unless I had to. But it kind of looks like it might go that direction. And so, and here's my, I'm going to end the video here pretty quick. Here's the line I will not allow to be crossed is when there stops being elections, we're to the next phase of an authoritarian moving to dictatorship. Then the very next thing is when they start rounding up regular Americans like me and deporting them, because they're trying to pass a law about that today. Every single one of these steps is an authoritarian government's step toward dictatorship. I don't know why anybody would want that, would vote for that, would, like politicians in the House of Representatives or in the Senate would vote for that or approve of that. Can't picture it. But they're making steps, they're making chess moves to permit that. And I'm a realist. That is a hill I'm willing to die on. Because I took an oath a long time ago, and I wouldn't have even had to take that oath. That's the person I am. My father raised me. My father would have helped anybody. It doesn't have to be a countrywide thing. If somebody was hurt on the side of the road, my father would stop. It doesn't matter where he was having to get to. He would have stopped and helped them. If my father saw somebody getting attacked by a criminal or whatever, he would have stopped to help that person. And I know that. I do know that. So I've always been that person too. Well, that's here now, I think. And if it goes that direction, I'm going to continue to speak up. I'm going to continue to vote correctly. I'm never, ever going to miss a vote, never have. And I'm going to let people know my feelings. And if I have to, I will take up arms against the enemies of my country. I'm not going nutty like the Tea Party or whatever. But the experiment of America will continue. And my generation's not going to let that down. I am not going to permit that. And I know there's a ton of other people that are in the same exact boat as me, that we aren't going to permit that together. And so please re-examine your surroundings. Please be brave, because I'm not being brave. When your fear mechanism's broken, you're not smart enough to be brave. Okay. I think I'm not a really religious person, but whatever is running this universe, whatever started this universe, I am so appreciative and grateful that I've been given this life, and I'm here and now, because I'm going to make it a point to not allow it, bad people to hurt good people, for bad people to own other people, for the weaker to suffer and go hungry and be taken advantage of. I'm not going to allow it. And when I say I'm not going to allow it, it means I'm willing to spend my life on it, and I might not make it to 58. I don't know. I don't care. That's not me being brave. That's me being focused. What I need is everybody that watches this video to be brave. Please overcome your fears. Please start thinking about it. At minimum, get back into shape. It makes a difference. Start running. Get to where you can run, just like basic training. Get to where you can run 2 miles as quickly as you can. Get to where you can do 50 push-ups or 100 push-ups or 200 push-ups. Figure out what you got to do to get a 300 on a PT test. Okay? Figure out what you've got to do to get a 300 on your PT test, because your brain is there. It remembers. Get your body to catch back up, because we're going to need your help. And I don't want anybody to have to kill anybody, and I don't want to kill anybody ever. But there's got to be things that we can do to outsmart the bad people, to lend a hand, in the logistics or whatever. Okay? There's a lot of people, I have really good friends that are just top quality human beings and brilliant, who all they got to do is just remember who they were when they were in the military, and then get ready to have to do that again. And we'll come together and we'll make it happen. We're not going to let this place down. We owe our fathers, we owe our grandfathers. I owe my great-grandfather, who was in World War I. We're going to do a good job. I love you guys, and I know this is a kind of a weird video, but I'm not giving up. I hope you don't give up. I hope you help. And watch David Boomer. His name is David Clayton. Watch him. He's entertaining. He's interesting. All right, guys. Have a great day, and keep on keeping on.